And welcome everybody to our last minute oral bootcamp. I'm sure all of you attending this are likely to be Sec 4s, and you're probably, really at the point where you're trying to prepare and gear up for your oral. With that, can we head on to the next slide, please? So let me just give you guys a quick introduction of OVERMUGGed. So OVERMUGGed is actually the fastest growing tuition center in Singapore. We've held more than 3,000 students. And as you can see from the bursting attendance of today's webinar, a lot of our courses are very highly in demand. Our tutors are all from ex-MOE and ex-Learning Lab, and they are honestly really, really passionate educators who have been helping students throughout all their years, especially in trying to conquer the O-levels and A-levels as well. Next slide, please. If you've seen us around, actually, you'll be able to notice that we are on Straits Times as well. We most recently won an SME 500 award, and our distinction rates are twice that of the national average. So if you're wondering whether this webinar today is going to be able to help you guys, the answer is definitely yes. Hence, we're also going to be recording this and live streaming it as well, so that your friends out there who are trying to get the link, who are trying to log in, will be also able to get the resources that they need to make sure that they excel for oral. Please note also that during this webinar, we're actually not gaining anything from you guys. We really want to just help you to prepare for oral. So we really hope that we'll be able to address all your questions today at our Q&A session in order to make sure that you guys are prepared and sufficiently ready to go into your oral exams and score really well. Next slide, please. And with that, actually, we also want to let you guys know that on top of just our O-level courses, we also have JC tuition courses as well that cover H2 chemistry, physics and biology, math, H1 general paper, and H2 economics as well. The reason why we want to tell you this is because not a lot of people actually give you guys the next step forward. And as a tuition center, we really want to make sure that you guys not just have the resources for today in terms of oral, but are sufficiently prepared in facing, the next steps that you're going to take after your O-levels, which could be JC, could be poly. So this is definitely something that you can look out for. We are also going to be having a free webinar for our JC students. If you guys are thinking of going to JC and you don't know who to ask questions to, we're also going to be doing TikTok live, so you can stay tuned and ask us any questions. We're always here to help any time of the day. Next slide, please. And with that, it is really my privilege and my honor to be introducing teacher Amira today, who is actually going to be bringing you guys through all the important things you need to know about the oral exam, be it, your plan response or spoken interaction. She's really, concentrated all the meat into today's slides. If you haven't already downloaded it, you'll be able to access the link in our chat. So you'll be able to hit on to our website where you'll see a download button and you'll be able to download the materials from there. If not, you can access the materials on our Telegram channel as well. I've also sent it into the O-level chat. And with that, let's begin the webinar. Teacher Amira, on to you.
Hi, thanks, Gabby. And hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Okay, so, right, let us begin. Okay, if you're wondering what we're going to be going through today, right, you can actually take a look at the screen. Okay, the first thing that I'll be going through would be, right, the components and marks, right, for your oral paper. Afterwards, I'll run through some tips for your planned response. Then we'll take a look at the spoken interaction, and finally, of course, the Q&A section. Okay, so let's get started. I hope you guys like the animation as well on my slides. Okay, so first things first, what are the different oral components? Okay, as you know, we have our planned response, which is worth 15 marks. Okay, just a reminder that you actually have 10 minutes to prepare a response of up to 2 minutes. So what that means is that you actually have 2 minutes to yap. Now the video clip is usually around 1 minute. I think someone asked me before whether it can be 4 or 5 minutes. I think that would be quite unfair to you. So usually it is around 1 minute long, maybe about 40 seconds, 50 seconds thereabouts. You will also be given the first question. Okay, so during the prep time, do also note that you'll be given a piece of paper for you to plan, and you can refer to this during your presentation. So make sure that you maximize it, right? I'll run through with you in a bit how to maximize, right, this A4 prep paper. Now, after your planned response, right, we have your spoken interaction. Now, spoken interaction, I think, as you know, you are engaging in a discussion with the examiners on a topic that is broadly related to the video that you would have watched in part one. Okay, now, usually what happens for the spoken interaction is that you will get two questions, yeah? The first question that you get for your spoken interaction could be expository, could be descriptive, could be narrative, but the second one, right, 99% of the time, it is an argumentative question. Right, so for example, and this I think was actually tested, right, some years ago, robots will one day replace teachers. Do you agree? Why or why not? Now, I know this might seem a bit scary, right? Like, oh no, they could test me on anything under the sun. But note that everything, right, may be thematically linked. Okay, so whatever you see in the video, right, high chance, right, the content topic that it might be reflecting or hinting at will be tested, right, as part of your spoken interaction. Okay? Okay, right. So let's take a look at the planned response. Okay, so some key questions that I aim to answer for this section would be, number one, what do I do during the 10-minute prep time? Number two, how do I organize my response in a way that is clear, that is effective? Okay. First things first, when you do get your paper, right, please, right, don't waste time drawing tables, right, drawing triangles. Just jot down in this order on your paper. First and foremost, right, a brief analysis of the question. Okay. So jot down, for instance, what the focus of the question is. Are they asking you to interpret the emotions or the feelings of the people inside the video? Or are they asking you for your personal opinion, right? Would you participate in this, right? Would you? Would you not? Okay, jot down the focus, unpack it. Number two, right? So you draw a line and then you move on to the next section. Number two, jot down key relevant details from the video as well. Okay, so you can use your 5W1H. And then, of course, you draw another line. Then you have your response. I'll be running through, right, how to identify useful details from the video and how to craft a response effectively in a bit. Okay, but once you're done with this section, that's when you draw another line, and this is what you do during the last 1 to 2 minutes of your prep time. Think of 2 to 3 possible themes to mentally prepare you for the spoken interaction. Okay, so what this means is if the video, for instance, is of people clearing their trays at the hawker center, right? Perhaps the content topics that you could be tested for the spoken interaction, maybe it has to do with cleanliness in Singapore. It could have to do with values, right? Maybe even, right, social responsibility. So when you jot those down, what happens is when you get to the spoken interaction question section, right, you're not caught super off guard. And you would have already activated your knowledge beforehand to help you out for this portion. Okay? Now, as for the video, right, remember to watch it minimally twice. Okay? You can watch it 1,000 times if you want to. Okay? But minimum 2 times. Now, the first time you watch the video is really to figure out what's going on. Okay? So then you have a rough idea of what it's about. Second time onwards is when you watch it a bit more actively. So we're using, right, your second and third time onwards to basically identify key details, right, your number two, to help you with your number three. Okay? So how then do you identify key details? Remember I said 5W1H, right? Can anybody tell me what 5W1H stands for? In the chat, preferably. If you are not sure, right, do not worry, okay? It is on the next slide, okay? Now, 5W1H basically stands for, right, who, what, when, where, how, and why. Okay, so I do think that if you take a look at the first four, they're pretty straightforward, right? Who is in the video, right? Teenagers, right? Students, the elderly. What is happening in the video, right? What is the main event, right, that I see in the video? When and where, right? Timing, location, right? Is it happening at a school? Is it happening at a competition? Is it happening at an event? How, I would say, having to do with how the people may be feeling. You might also want to think about how, as in, how are they actually doing, right? What they're doing, right? So if you, for example, right, take a look at the video and the video is of people clearing the tray, right? How are they doing it? Are they doing it excitedly? Are they doing it reluctantly, maybe? All of those will actually help you with your elaboration later on. Okay. Now, as for why, right, I would argue that why is actually the most important question of all, really, because when it comes to why, it's there to help you elaborate. Okay, so if you think that they're doing it reluctantly, why would that be the case, right? Why would they do that? Okay. Whatever it is, do know that you're identifying key details. So do focus only on the details that will help you with your response. Okay, so they help to support your response. Okay, don't need to identify everything, lah, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And once you have all these ideas, right? You have your ideas, your personal opinion, maybe you have ideas, right? In relation to the video. How do you organize everything? That's when you use your PEEL. Okay. So PEEL, I do think, is something that we have seen many times already, right? We use it for our argumentative essays, expository essays, really because PEEL, right, is very, very effective. Okay. For your oral, what does it stand for? P point. Okay. So when I say point, I mean answer the question directly. Okay. So if they're asking you, would you participate? Would you be keen on this event? Would you recommend this activity to other people? Yes, I would. No, I wouldn't. Right. So you don't have to be super fancy, right? Just answer the question directly. Same thing, right? They're asking you, right? If you take a look over here, what do you think the people in the video are feeling? Right, just let them know, right? I think that they are feeling a range of emotions. I think that they are feeling, right? I'm rather excited. Answer it directly first. Okay, feel free to reuse keywords from the question as well. Okay, so would you take part in the event? Yes, I would take part in the event. Okay, afterwards, you explain. Now, when I say explain, provide 2 to 3 reasons why you feel this way. Now, when I say provide 2 to 3 reasons, I don't just mean listing, do elaborate on it briefly as well. Okay, so I would participate because it looks fun. What about it looks fun? Okay, is it fun because of the fact that it is dealing with maybe toys, right? Is it fun because, for instance, it has to do with video games, which is your hobby? Okay, so provide 2 to 3 reasons why you feel that way, and do signpost with phrases like firstly, moreover. Okay, now for the final reason, so if let's say I have 3 reasons, the third reason, okay, 2 reasons, the second reason, okay, highlight a personal example along with key details from the video. And don't forget to mention how the details in the video reinforce your point. And finally, of course, you reiterate your point. I would say that for the purposes of your oral, you can just repeat, right, your point directly. Okay? Okay. So if let's say you are wondering how to elaborate for the reasons, right? Because I mentioned earlier reasoning. Let me share with you a useful strategy. Okay, so when it comes to elaborating on your reason, you can think simply of cause and effect. Okay, so if you find it fun, why do you find it fun? Right? What is the reason for you finding this fun? Okay, if you find it maybe therapeutic, right? What is the effect of that, right? So if it's therapeutic, it helps you calm down, it helps you relax from the stresses of school life. Okay, so you notice very useful starting points to help you with your elaboration for each reason. Okay, you can jot these down right into your worksheet as well. Okay. Now, let's take a look at an example of this PEL format in action. Okay, so let me clear the screen and let's take a look at this example. Okay, would you volunteer at an old folks home? Let's say, yes, right, I would volunteer. Notice my point, I'm just answering it directly. Nothing fancy about this. Okay, how then do I explain? Firstly, I would be able to better understand the challenges, right, that the elderly may face. Right. Moreover, as the elderly are a treasure trove of knowledge and wisdom, I would be able to gain many insights just from listening to their stories. Notice I'm just giving reasons to justify my stance. Okay, I'm not really elaborating here, right? So this is just to show you a snippet of what it should look like. Yeah, I'm not elaborating here because there is not much space on the screen. Okay, but I can elaborate, and I should, in fact. Okay, so I would explain maybe, right, a reason why I would want to better understand their challenges. I could also elaborate, right, on an effect of better understanding the elderly's challenges as well. Okay, same thing for the second reason. Okay, and let's say I only have 2 reasons. What do I do next? I mention my examples. Okay, notice I say examples plural because I'm talking about evidence, personal evidence, and I'm talking about evidence from the video. So this is just an example over here, right? You can take a look on screen. You can notice my signposting when I get to an example. I can use for example as well, right? But for instance works fine too, right? So I learned about the ups and downs a lot of kampung life, right? From my grandfather who enjoys regaling me with stories about his childhood when I visit him on the weekends. I love how his eyes light up when he talks about so on and so forth. And then I draw a link between my example and the video. Similarly, the video features, right? I could also say the video depicts, the video shows. And notice over here, it is really just me inserting, right, all the key details from earlier, right? Presumably, it is about Juing Old Folks Home. Okay, the elderly are laughing and clapping enthusiastically at the students' chicken dance performance. And you notice again, 5W1H in action. Okay, so who, the elderly, where at this old folks' home, what are they doing, and how are they doing it? They're clapping their hands enthusiastically, right? What else is happening? Right, this is chicken dance performance. Why would they be clapping? Oh, because they probably enjoyed it. Now, do note, right? You should also mention briefly, right, the significance of these details because remember, the point of you mentioning the video is to draw a link, right? So mention the link at the end, right? How does it, in other words, reinforce your point? Okay. Thus, I would volunteer at an old folks home. So that's basically how I link it, right? Right at the end. Okay. And this is how you see, right? Your PEEL, right? Basically in action. Okay. Notice it's very clear with a bit more elaboration, right? A few more details, right? This would be sound, right? As you guys say, chef's kiss, I think. Okay. Now, I'll move on to the spoken interaction question, okay, in the interest of time. Okay, now, spoken interaction question, some questions that I aim to answer for this section are as follows. So what kind of questions will you usually get for the spoken interaction? How do you organize your answers? And how will you even know what to say? Okay, so the first one, what kind of questions you would get? Okay, typically, right, you would get maybe narrative or descriptive. You could also get expository or argumentative, but I would say argumentative, usually it is the last question, okay? Now for narrative or descriptive, right, what you are supposed to do, right? You're supposed to recount an experience, tell a personal story. If it is descriptive, then you need to describe, okay? My advice when it comes to your narrative or descriptive is to use SIT, okay? SIT, first and foremost, right, set the scene. Okay, so quickly state when, where, who. Okay, give a quick reason why this event was memorable or special, especially for your narrative. Okay, if it is descriptive, quickly state, right, what you are describing or talking about. Again, you can use a 5W1H. Okay. Second one is important events, right? I would say important moments, important details. For your narrative question, describe 1 to 3 key moments or actions in your story. If it is descriptive, right, you might want to describe 1 to 3 features, qualities, maybe even aspects of that particular thing. Okay? And finally, right, share what you felt, right, share what you learned. In other words, include any kind of personal reflection, right, any kind of lesson or something as simple as what you enjoyed the most, right, from that experience. Okay. The second question type is your expository, right? Typically, they'll ask you to explain or inform, right, about something. Okay, so as you can see, I just use my PEEL again, right? But this time for each point. So if the question is asking me, right, and I think in 2020, they actually asked this question, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using the internet for homework and studying? Right, what I do is, right, first point, right, first advantage that I mentioned, maybe I use PEEL. Second point, maybe another advantage. Again, I use peel. Third, fourth, maybe disadvantages this time. I use peel as well. I'll be giving you samples, right, in a little bit. But just note that each point I use peel. Okay? Other examples of questions that have been tested, right, expository. I think 2 years ago, 2023, there was a question asking simply about suggestions, right, to improve your neighborhood. Right, so each suggestion, right, my first suggestion would be so on and so forth. I use peel again to structure and explain. Second suggestion, again, I use peel. Okay. Finally, argumentative, right? This one I think we have come across, right? Argumentative questions many a time. Okay, so for argumentative essay, sorry, I was going to say essay question. Argumentative spoken interaction question, same thing as your essays. Take a stand and justify. Okay, so what do you do? Overall you use scare, right? Whether it's your stand or counter argument, you use PEEL, okay? Scare stands for, as you can see on screen, stand, counter argument, right? CA, rebuttal, and then an end, okay? For the stand, when we say stand, we don't just mean the one-liner, I agree, I disagree. No, we mean I agree, plus peel reasons, right, for that stand. I agree. Firstly, I use peel. Secondly, and then my second peel. Okay, so in other words, stand is your stance plus two reasons. You can give three if you want to as well, okay, but minimally two. Okay, supporting your stance using peel. Counter argument, right, refers to basically a reason why a person might disagree with you. Okay, do signpost maybe with phrases like some people believe otherwise, right? However, there are people who may disagree with me because something. Okay, so just mention that so the examiner knows that you are moving right into a counter argument, that you are no longer justifying your stance, right? Okay, so this one can be one, two lines, right? What is more important is that after your counter argument, you need to rebut. Okay, rebutting basically means that you are undermining, okay, this counter argument. Okay, so you need to point out a problem with the counter argument. Maybe, right, some people believe so on and so forth. However, this perception is flawed, right? However, this perception is illogical. Maybe it is an overgeneralization. So point out a problem, right, with the counter argument because the rebuttal is here to help your stance. Okay? And after you're done with everything, what you do at the end, in conclusion or overall, thus, I agree, I disagree. Okay, so what I'm doing right at the end is simply just repeating my stance. Okay? Okay, all right. So I'll assume that everybody is more or less clear. Okay, now let me show you some examples, right, for each kind of question and sample responses. Right, we'll start with your narrative descriptive. Okay, now let's say you're presented with a narrative. Okay, a narrative question. Tell me about a vacation with your family that you really enjoyed. What do I do first? I always set the scene, right? And notice when I set the scene, I can use my 5W1H. Okay, so during the school holidays last year, so when did this happen, right? School holidays last year, right? Who is involved? My family and I. What did we do? We went on a week-long vacation to Bali, Indonesia. And I suppose this also covers where. Okay, and then you notice I mentioned a quick reason why this is so memorable. Right, it was our first time there. We were really excited. Okay, so this is me setting the scene. So the examiner is introduced, in a sense, to your main characters, right, and what the context is. Afterwards, I mentioned important events, right? In this case, I'm trying to say that this vacation is something that we enjoyed, right? So I shared, right, one of the most memorable days. In this case, it was when we visited Nusa Dua Beach. This is a real beach, by the way, right? So feel free to look it up or go for a vacation here as well. Okay, and I see over here, right, what is so significant, right? What is so important? The water was crystal clear. It was warm. It wasn't cold, right? We spent hours swimming and snorkeling among colorful fish. In the evening, we also attended this particular show. So you notice the way that I describe it, it is also trying to show that it's so important. It was so enjoyable. Okay. You could also use, right, 5W1H for this as well, right? 5W1H, as you can tell, very versatile, very, very useful. Now, at the end, right, I don't just end here. Right? I tie, right, everything together with my thoughts, my takeaways. Okay, so thoughts, takeaways is always a matter of, right, what you got, right, from this particular event. In this case, this vacation. Okay, notice over here, right, my main takeaway was the fact that I really enjoyed it because my family finally had time to relax, laugh, and make memories away from our busy daily lives. Okay, and of course, personally, I also gained a greater appreciation, right, for different cultures. Overall, it was an unforgettable experience that taught me the value of family. Okay, so you notice over here, right, I set the scene. I have my important events, right? Important moments, important actions. And then I mention a bit of a personal reflection. You could say that this is basically like a succinct or tinier version, right, of your story mountain. Story mountain, you have your rising action, the climax, and then the falling action, etc., right? This is pretty much the same thing, but you notice it's a bit more concise, right? It is more succinct. Okay, because for your oral paper, you can't be going on and on, right? Using the rising, you can't do that. So this is like a shorter and more effective version of that. Yeah, so it's shorter, it still captures all the key elements. Lah. Okay? Second one, right? Let's say I have this question. What are the advantages and disadvantages of studying in groups? So this is my expository, right? Okay, immediately you know that I have to list and explain each point. Okay, so my first point, right? Firstly, right? Studying in groups helps students understand topics better. Notice I'm using PEEL, right? Very direct, right? Very clear. Okay, and you notice my E over here, my elaboration. Okay, I'm using effect, right? So the effect of studying in groups, right, is because when you discuss ideas with others, you get to hear other perspectives. That's the consequence of working in a group, right? And I think this is something that all of us can relate. Okay, so the example that I've shared, and this is a true story actually for me, right? My best friend is actually really good at maths, right? And she often helps me understand difficult concepts. Okay, so studying in a group is really effective because when I don't know any question, I don't understand it, I can just go to her, right? Like, oh, excuse me, right? I know you're busy, right, with your revision, but can you help me out over here? Okay, so overall, you notice, right, what is happening is collaborative learning. We are learning from each other. And this, in the end, helps to deepen, right, our understanding of the topics as well. Okay? Second point, right? Studying in a group, sorry, there's supposed to be the word in over here, right? Studying in a group, okay, motivates students, right, to stay focused, right? Knowing that others depend on you encourages commitment, right, and discipline. Again, I'm using effect, right? So because we're studying in a group, right, I feel like, oh, I need to be committed, I need to be disciplined, okay? As a result of that, right, I end up being more focused, okay? Actually, yeah, this one I realized not so much effect, but more of a cause, lah. Right? So because, right, I know that people are depending, right? So I remember reading an article. If you can quote, right, the name of the news outlet, I think that would be even more impressive, right? So I remember reading an article from Channel News Asia. That one works too. Okay, so this article said that setting group deadlines helps us prepare for exams on time. So in other words, it is illustrating my point, right, that it motivates students to stay focused. Thus, studying together can improve overall productivity. I would say that if you don't have, right, examples, like real world examples, you can use personal examples as well. It's fine, right? For your oral paper, it's fine. Or of course, for your paper one, right, you do need real world examples, something like this, something a bit more concrete, right, if possible. So statistics, right, case studies, those would be better, right, for your paper one. Okay. Oral, I think priority, which one is better? I would say personal examples are better and they'll be easier for you to produce on the spot as well. Okay, so don't beat yourself up if during your oral paper, I don't have any real world examples. Don't beat yourself up over it. Right, personal examples is what we prefer actually. Okay. Now, finally, right, your third point, using peel. Now, of course, in this case, I'm moving on to my disadvantages, right? Disadvantage is the opposite of advantage. So I use the word however. However, as you know, is a discourse marker that implies the opposite movement. Okay? In this case, studying in groups can sometimes cause distractions. We might get sidetracked by chatting with one another. Okay, so I'm elaborating. Okay, so I'm explaining, right, what happens, right, when we are distracted. Okay, so last week I tried to study with my friend and we ended up gossiping instead of reviewing our history notes. So, personal example, right? Evidently, studying alone may be more effective, right, than studying in a group. Okay? Evidently means clearly. Okay, clearly, studying alone may be more effective, right? So that's me just summing up because I'm trying to say that studying in a group can cause distractions. Okay? So notice over here, there is no need to take a stand for such a question. Because for the expository, notice it's just like writing an expose. It is just you listing, right, with explanations. I'm asking you, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Right? I'm not asking you to pick a side. So over here, there's no need to take a stand at all. Okay, just state, right, explain, and you are good to go. Okay? The one that you need to take a stand for will be your argumentative question, right? So this one. Okay, so in order to reduce pollution, people should travel only when necessary. What do you think? Okay, so you definitely need to have a stand, right? What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Right? So in this case, I agree to a small extent. Okay, so next one, I state my first reason. Okay, and I use PEEL. Firstly, travel plays a crucial role in economic growth and job creation. Remember that when it comes to my argumentative writing, argumentative oral spoken interaction, my points are always reasons for my stand. So this is a reason why, right? I think, right? This is I don't quite agree with it, lah, right? So this is, in other words, a reason why I don't quite agree with this particular statement. Okay, and then I elaborate. Right, many industries such as tourism, they rely heavily on people traveling regularly. For example, and notice I'm using a real world example over here. Okay, tourism contributes billions to the economy and it supports thousands of jobs. So restricting travel too much could harm livelihoods and actually slow down our economy. Right. Second one, moreover, because again, I am highlighting another reason for my stance, right? So, moreover, travel is important for social and cultural exchange, promotes understanding and peace. Right. Meeting people from different backgrounds help to reduce prejudices and builds global friendships. So, again, I'm elaborating, this time using effect. And then again, for instance, notice this time I'm not using a real world example, I'm using a personal example, which is again to repeat, fine for your oral paper. Okay? Thus, without travel, we risk becoming more close minded and disconnected from the world around us. Okay, so note these are my two reasons for my stance. I can elaborate on this a little bit more, right, if I want to as well. Okay, but this is just to show you a sample, right, with the format. Next is my counter argument, right, and my rebuttal. Okay, so some may argue that reducing travel is necessary. They believe fewer trips means less carbon emissions. One example they may cite. Notice the text that I'm highlighting in yellow over here. I'm always distancing myself from the counter argument. Why do I say they believe? One example they may cite is because this is not what I think. This is not supporting my stand. So there is no need for me to, yeah, there's no need for me to say that, oh, however, reducing travel is necessary, because then I would be contradicting myself. Okay, so over here, I always distance myself, right, from the counter. I use phrases like these. Some may argue that, they. Okay? When I'm moving to my rebuttal, though, I use however, because again, opposite. So at first, I go down my stance, right? I'm going this way. And then some may argue I'm going in the opposite direction. And then, however, I turn back towards my proper direction. Okay, so however, technology like electric vehicles, cleaner fuels can reduce pollution, right, without limiting travel, allowing us to balance, right, our needs. Okay, so just as simple as that, right? I've already undermined my counter argument. And then how do I end? I repeat my stand. Thus, in conclusion, all in all, right, I agree to the statement to a small extent. Right, I don't think, all right, in order to reduce pollution, people should travel only when necessary. Okay? Everybody can so far? Can I get you guys to just give me a quick emoji of choice? Okay, all right, good, 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 good. Thanks, guys. Okay, now, next question that I think a lot of you might be asking. Okay, so I have the format, I have ideas, but actually, what if I only have the format, right? What if I don't know what to say? Okay, my advice, start now, okay? Be familiar with common themes, right? Technology, environmental issues, social issues. These are the themes that are commonly tested for your oral paper, right? Build your content knowledge so that, right, you have things to say. And remember, I said we don't even require real world evidence, right? So keep your eyes peeled on what's happening, right? Observe, right, the world a little bit more so that you can have personal examples to back your ideas up. Okay. So in other words, build your content knowledge. Okay. I will help you out today, right, by helping us build our content knowledge, specifically on plastic pollution. Okay. So questions, right? What is plastic pollution? How are we affected by it? And what are we doing about it? Okay. I believe that this is something that you have probably gone through, right? I'm in school, maybe for your geog lessons, right? Your science lessons. For those of you in the environment club, this is definitely, right, very apt. Okay. So some fun facts, right? And do jot down, right, these fun facts in your worksheet. Okay. The amount of time it takes for plastic to actually decompose and break down, good, 400 years. A, s- a, s- a million? I wouldn't say that's close, right? 400 years. Okay, so 400 years, but it's still a long time. So it may not be millions of years, but it is still a pretty long time. Okay? Now, the problem is the amount of plastic that leaks into our aquatic ecosystems, right? The amount of plastic that pollutes lakes, rivers, and seas, 19 to 23 million tons. Okay? Okay, I was expecting some of you to react with like a shock emoji or something. Okay? Maybe to sort of put things into perspective, right? Tons, 1 ton, right, is 1,000 kg. So 1,000 kilograms, right? So you have 1923 million, right, of that. Okay, so and that's the amount of plastic that's actually polluting, right, our water bodies. Okay? And of course, as you can imagine, right, this has led to adverse effects, right, on marine animals. Over 700 species of marine animals have been reported to have eaten or been entangled in plastic, right? So I think a very iconic example, right, would be the turtles, right, the sea turtles. Right, they think that the plastic, right, is actually jellyfish. So they try to eat it, and then it turns out to be plastic. So their stomachs are filled with plastic. It doesn't get digested properly. Okay. Now, another problem, right, besides this impact on marine animals, and I think this is something that you probably know a little bit, right? Microplastics. Okay. Now, some students ask me, what exactly, right, are microplastics, etc.? How do they come about? Well, and feel free to jot this down. You can screenshot, take a picture as well. Okay, when plastic breaks down in the ocean, it doesn't break down completely. It just gets smaller and smaller. So, in other words, what happens is it becomes microplastics, right? So, micro, like microorganism, right? Micro, that size, very, very tiny, right? Maybe like the size of a rice grain, if not smaller. Okay, and you might think, okay, sure, so what? Unfortunately, microplastics actually harm wildlife. So remember I talked about the turtles, right? The sea turtles? Okay, so wildlife, they end up having a marine wildlife, right? And wildlife in general. They end up having digestive problems, right? Starvation. In some extreme cases, right? They could even die as a result. Okay, and this also potentially harms, right? Humans who consume the seafood. Okay, in fact, I think what scientists, right, have noticed is that microplastics are everywhere, right, for humans. Okay, so basically what happens is the fish, let's say they consume microplastics and then they get caught in a fishing net and then they're sent to the wet market, right? I buy the fish, I cook it at home, right? I eat it. That's how the microplastics get in my body, right? In my bloodstream even. Okay. So there is still scientific, right, uncertainty about the long-term effects of microplastics in the human bloodstream. Okay, so that one, there is still ongoing research about it. Okay, but what we know is that they are potentially dangerous. Okay, they also contaminate soil and water, so leading to long-term ecological or environmental damage. Okay, so this is another concern when we talk about plastic pollution. Okay, now, what about Singapore? Okay, notice that when it comes to your spoken interaction questions or the themes for your oral paper in general, they tend to be pretty relatable to Singapore society, right? So whenever you are looking at a content topic, always ask yourself, what about the Singapore context? Okay? So let's take a look. Let's see if you can guess, right? How many percent, right? What is the proportion of the 1.6 million tons of waste, right, that we produce every year that is plastic waste? Okay, I'll give you some time to ruminate on this. Okay, I'm getting a lot of interesting answers. Let me know in the chat. Right, I'll count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 100%. Okay, good. So a lot of you are saying 50, 70. Okay, fortunately, right, the correct answer is actually 12. Okay, so fortunately, right, things are not as dire. Okay, only 12% of the total, right, is plastic waste. But even though it's 12%, it looks small. We're talking about 1.6 million tons. Remember, we're talking about thousands and thousands of kilograms. Okay, so even though the number is small, it is not 50, it is not 70, it is still a significant amount. Okay, now, hold on. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay. What proportion of plastic waste, right, is recycled in Singapore? Okay, so again, I'll give you some time to ruminate on this, right? Do share with me your answers. I'll give you maybe about 20 seconds. That's actually a lot of you. 96%, right? 50%. Okay, you don't think it is 52. You don't think it is 50. Okay, now I'll say troubling numbers, guys, right? 4% of plastic waste is recycled in Singapore. Okay. Now, the reason why I say it is troubling, why is it so low? Why is it not 96%? Now, remember that when you want to recycle plastic waste, right? When you want to recycle plastic waste, actually the plastic cannot be contaminated. So it cannot be contaminated. So the minute you like sort of provide, let's say you throw your plastic, and then let's say it's contaminated by curry, like this curry stains, right, or oil stains, it cannot be processed. So it cannot be recycled, right? To put it quite simply. Okay. So that's why they say before you throw away plastic, or if you want to recycle plastic, make sure you clean it as far as possible. So plain bottles, right, are fine. If there's like oil stains, the minute it's contaminated, right, it is a no-go, right, for it to be recycled. Okay? Can the four? Right, can you guys just give me a quick thumbs up if that much is clear? Okay, good, 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 good. I see a lot of thumbs ups. Okay, right. So very low. You're quite disappointed, right? You and me both, right? You and I both, okay? But the good thing is now you guys know. So maybe you can contribute, right, to the plastic recycling rate and push it up, okay? Now, do note, of course, right? I say you guys can do something. Now, as a society, right, we are definitely doing something. The government's also doing something. Okay, so if you take a look, right, we are trying to address, right, this problem. Okay, can you guess how we're trying to address it? Yay! How are we trying to address this? What have you noticed? There is something that I think a lot of you have probably seen when you go to the supermarkets. What happens? Okay, the blue bin, very good. So we do have recycling bins. Okay, good. We're encouraging recycling among youth. And there are campaigns definitely to raise awareness. You like NTUC, bring your own bag. Prize for plastic bags, very good. Okay, and good, right? The first one that I wanted to sort of share with you was precisely the charging of plastic bags, right? Do know that we've always, I wouldn't say we've always had, right? But the blue bins, right, have been around for quite a while. Okay, but the one that is kind of new, okay, would be plastic bags being charged. Okay, so when you go to NTUC, you go to NTUC Fair Price, you go to Cold Storage, you go to Giant, notice that now you have to pay money for plastic bags. Last time, you didn't have to. Okay, so last time you could just take, right? How many plastic bags do you need? Some people would take the plastic bag for one apple and then put it in another plastic bag and put it in another plastic bag. But what happens is that you're actually wasting, right? You're contributing to plastic waste. Now, the good thing is, did it work? Yes, right? So as you can see on screen, okay, over here, this has actually led to a reduced usage, right, in plastic bags. Okay, so fortunately, it has worked, right, so far. Okay. Another thing which I think you might not be so familiar with, and this is true as of 2025, so true as of this year. Okay. There are new guidelines to limit packaging in the e-commerce sector. So basically your online shopping. Notice when you order parcels, right? Sometimes they're wrapped in copious amounts of plastic. So now there are new guidelines to cut down, right, on the amount of plastic used, right? Or just to, there are more limits, in other words, to the packaging in general. Okay, so one example would be not using Scotch tape to avoid tainting the recyclability of a box. Okay, so remember I said that if material is contaminated, right, then we can't recycle it, right? Bags, you are right. Some of the bags, right, when you want to pull out your parcel, it's all made of plastic, right? And then we just throw it away without thinking. Okay, so this is what is happening as of this year. And in 2026, this one I think is really interesting. Consumers will have to pay a refundable 10% deposit for bottled and canned drinks. Okay, so this QR code consists canned drinks, and they will receive a full refund of the deposit when they return, right, these empty bottles. Right, what do you guys think? Do you think this will work? Next year. It's happening next year? Yes. Definitely? You hope so. Okay, so I see that that is cool. And that's all that I have for you today. Okay, so I'll pass the time now to Gabby. All right, so Gabby, are you there?
Hi, yep. You should be able to hear me down to the end of our webinar. And let me talk to you a little bit more about what happens after this. So if you're interested to know how else you can, get resources or get further help from like teachers like Teacher Amira, etc., you'll be able to access our free trial classes as well. We definitely have classes from AMath to EMath, including English as well, and even our sciences, even for combined science, if you do need help. So with that, next slide, please. Here are some testimonials. If you are in need of severe help and intervention, right? We've got students who have improved from E8 to an A1. And with that, we are leaving with you guys on the screen our QR code for our free trial classes. If you are able to access our website as well, you'll be able to download our slides to scan this QR code. Basically, these classes are really meant to help you. There's nothing that we gain from it. All you need to do is scan a QR code and join any of our classes for free. You can try any of our classes, whichever you find will be able to help you best in time for your O levels.